Hi, beautiful women. It's that time again to invite you to 13 Moons. This month is our December session, December 10th. And it's just so striking to me that we're almost at the end of our series. We are at the last one for 2016, and we'll have our very last session on January 7th in 2017. And then we will be launching the 13th year of 13 Moons, which is so exciting to think about us having moved through this cycle for 12 years. So one of the most important reasons that was my inspiration for creating 13 Moons, when we talk about the loss of ourselves as women and understanding our mystery, our sacred inheritance that has to do with, and it's interwoven with our life cycle. No theme could be more true than the one we're going to be exploring on December 10th, which we call Menopause, and having to do with our power years. So this is the traditional theme that we would talk about that has to do with menopause. And our culture, and it has really reduced that in a way, having to do more with a buildup of symptoms that we want to be able to more elegantly handle as we move from a time where we've been through our reproductive years into our time where we're no longer fertile. And so what has happened with that is we've become more and more interested, and of course it's of a lot of concern as to how to really more meaningfully handle the symptoms that often can be extremely difficult and challenging. And when we go to traditional medicine, we find in our doctors, they don't really have a lot of good answers for us. And so we've been the pioneers for our own health. So that alone has been huge in becoming more integrative, becoming more grassroots, becoming more interconnected, and how we exchange information about really how to stay in balance during a time where we're incredibly deregulated. But from a much deeper perspective, this is probably one of the most significant rites and passages that we go through that we've lost sight of. So when we talk about being initiated into our power years, it's not something elegant like if we, many times, and I'm encouraging of it too, to go on retreats and have these wonderful rites and passages. But this is one where this is undeniable. We don't get off without having some form of this. And while some women will say that this wasn't a big experience for them in terms of physical symptoms and so forth, and others have, quite a bit of difficulty, there is an emotional element and there's a spiritual element. And so this has to do often with, as our hormones shift, as our regulation shifts out, the rawness of who we are, the truthfulness, the depth of what we're really feeling about things come right to the surface and right through us. And many of more of the contemporary writers and theorists and medicine women who've really been looking at this more as an anthropological or a spiritual issue, as opposed again to sort of a psychological, physiological one, will reconnect this to a lot of lineage that is more ancient or is going on in a more cross-cultural or diverse in terms of a global understanding, that as we are destabilized, we move through. When we talk about power, we're literally, we talk about hot flashes, our energy is shifting into a place where we begin to explore sort of like something like an earthquake where, the earth cracks open and we see what's within. And so that has to do with, in some ways, looking at what is not working in our life, but it also can have to do with what we more deeply and meaningfully want to devote ourselves to. In our culture, we expect ourselves to have it all right away at the same time and be doing it all. But really, when we think about it, and in other cultures, even though women did a great deal of work in those cultures, when they came into their real mastery was usually in their early 50s, because it was a time that they could concentrate and have the inner fortitude and the external opportunity to sometimes create their most important work in one form or another, to have a different kind of value. And so this is a very, very important moment for us to really take a look at and to reframe. Barbara Marx Hubbard, who's one of the most fantastic futurists that we have, who is now in her 80s, that's still talking about becoming new. She likes to talk about it as regenopause, and I really love that we are re-energizing and regenerating into a whole new era of our lives and facets of ourselves. So we look at the archetypes that support that, and they're more the fearless fire goddesses, like Kali, that we look at, who is not so nurturing. She nurtures by pushing us right into the fire and saying, now is the time to really stand in your power, to allow yourself to not be looking at your reflection, but being in the dance of your life in a whole different way. So we explore that in a deep way and in a beautiful way, as always. And I really appreciate when the younger women that are in our tribe, that are years away from menopause, are hanging in there with us for this particular session, because I think it really reframes their experience with women in their lives and can give that back to them. A lot of women never make it to 13 moons. And I have one very short, very fun story of this woman who was a teacher. And she said, oh, these older women, they're just complaining all the time, and well, in the office and so forth. And I go, hey, they're in their power years, they're fire goddesses. And she reframed the whole thing as we talked more about it. She went back, she was a teacher, and she went back to school. And she goes, hey, ladies, you're all fire goddesses. And they just were so excited at this idea of rather kind of, looking at the disillusioned elements of what they were sort of reporting about, and really seeing that their intolerance, their bottom line bluntness, was actually something that was refreshing and is something that had value to where they were. It just needed to be honored and appreciated and change the dynamic. So it also puts a different face on aging, from the point of view of saying, a lot of women will come to me and say that they're really afraid of going through menopause. And so to demystify that and say, yeah, you're going to go through your own journey, but how beautiful you're going to go through your own journey, and it will be influenced by you, rather than trying to hide it and elegantly move through something that isn't, and pretending it's not happening, to really deeply embrace it as an initiation. So come with us as we invite an initiation of spirit and consciousness and sisterhood on December 10th, as we explore and allow the lid to be blown off by the power years of Menopause.